So mid-90s, I did the impossible. I decided to watch 21 movies in 3 days. Now, you might think you didn't know I was such a big shot or that I tried such hard things, but there were two events happening culturally in this moment. Jim Carrey was at the peak of his career, and well, Nicolas Cage has always been at the peak of his career, but so has Nicolas Cage. And so I doubled down, I tripled down on this. It's a lot of hard work to watch that many movies in that few days, and I was driving my way through, and I can remember in the midst of that, when I didn't accomplish it, by the way. Some of you, I failed, okay, because a good person told me that maybe I should do better things with my life. And they hit me up about 2.5 days in, so I just dropped the whole thing, right? But in the midst of that, there was these two films, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and Dumb and Dumber, that just gave me a second wind because Jim Carrey was absolutely at his peak. Now, Jim Carrey, if you followed his career at all, he started to say some things that really created a tension in the world of Hollywood. At one point, he said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see that it's not the answer." And then he doubled down on that because people started to go, "You're being dramatic. This is like a rich guy syndrome thing." He had everything. He had money, recognition, red carpets. He had box office records. He had unlimited film opportunities. But somewhere he was saying, this isn't enough. Another quote attributed to him is that, "I spent so many years trying to become somebody. When I finally became somebody, I realized I still didn't know who I was." And I'm like, like this guy, he's just dropping stuff into my life. That line really hits me because it's not just a Jim Carrey or a celebrity problem, it's a human one. I could relate to those words. You don't need to be on a stage or be in a movie or be wildly successful, be on the court in the Final Four or in the finals to know what it feels like. To like be in that crunch moment, and maybe we could say to feel like you're running a race or like life is a race, always trying to get ahead, to level up, to not fall behind. And so in some ways, we end up with like no clear picture of a finish line, just in life, right? There's no clear picture of what the finish line is. We kind of know what the next thing is, but that's not the finish line. So we just know I am supposed to run. And I'm supposed to run and run and run. And at times I might feel tired, but that doesn't mean I can't stop running. I just have to keep on running. And if I'm being honest, I'd like to frame this conversation by saying it's like we're all in this race and no one remembers signing up. I don't think any of us said, like, I just want to ambiguously run towards a finish line that I'm not sure what it is my whole life. But we keep running anyway, just trying to prove that we're somebody. And so this Icon series, this short conversation we're having about the cross leading up to Easter, it's not only about like how to run the race or what the race is, it's really about like what living has to do with that race and should we even be running it. So to clarify, what if the cross isn't an invitation to win the race? It's not a set of skills or ideas or philosophies to really help you maximize life and go out there and win whatever that race is you're in. So if it's not an invitation to win the race, then what is it? Like that's kind of our next question then. So what do we do, right? If it's not an invitation to win the race, then I want to say it's an invitation to get out of the race entirely. Now some of you might hear that and almost have a reaction and go, wait, that doesn't sound interesting to me. I like my life. I like what I'm pursuing. I like the challenges it brings to me. I'm not saying less life. Just talking about this constant, ambiguous, undefined, we always have to just keep pressing on. It's a race and you just have to run it. So we do a few questions here in the morning. It's a chance to turn to your neighbor. If you don't know your neighbor and they're sitting alone, don't assume they're an introvert, but don't assume they want you to talk to them. Good luck is all I have to say there. What advice would you give someone who feels like they're losing the race? Like what wisdom would you drop? Someone pulls up next to you and they go, "Hey, I just feel like I'm running this race and I'm just stuck in it. You got a minute." What'd you say to them? We'll be back in 1 minute, okay?
Who's watching me? Hey, hell, I pay the price. All I want is to be loved.
All right, take 10 seconds. I really didn't want to break that up. There was like some serious, keep that going maybe. I think there's a lot of wisdom out there. I think though, as we look at the icon or the image of the cross as a way of life that we can live, that points us to Jesus, as I think about that, I kind of go, okay, here's what I notice about myself though, and probably about you. Most of us would say, if pinned down, I don't really care what people think about me. Like, that's of course what we're supposed to say. It's also what we want to believe, and I think it's something we tell ourselves while we very carefully care a whole lot about what people think about us. Whether it's just curating an Instagram post or whether it's locked in a thought about, this person, and maybe it's a person from your past or a person you're currently with or a person you've never met, and just kind of what they think of you and are you measuring up. Most of us are hypothetically checking the audience all the time. Think of it like we have a jury, right? It's a court of public opinion, and we're just constantly on trial. And this jury can be anybody. That's the interesting thing about it. It's just kind of randomly selected by your brain and by your life. It can be imaginary coworkers or imaginary panel. If you have imaginary coworkers, I don't know what to say to you today this morning. It can be an imaginary panel of coworkers. Maybe it's exes or parents. Maybe it's coaches or classmates, church people. It could be spouses, roommates. It could be absolute randos that you don't know in any way. And you're like, but somehow they just have voice into my life. Maybe it's that one person from high school who they just seem to be, they're hitting midlife and somehow they're just winning, or they seem to be winning at everything. Or that person who always has better weekend plans with the kids than you do. And like, how do they pull that off? How are they so amazing? That one person whose homecoming, whose HOCO invitation was like next level, and now you're feeling that pressure when yours is coming up. What's it going to be? It could be any number of ways. And we kind of weave ourselves in and out of this imaginary like jury of this public opinion. And so the court might change based on the season of life you're in. Like, we're not all dealing with the same voices, but the pressure stays the same. There's this kind of creative comedian, philosopher, songwriter, Bo Burnham. He says it this way. He says, can any of us really live in the present when everything we do is filtered through what others will think of it later? And he's really getting onto something. Like, can we live in the moment? Because that's where we live. Can we actually do that if we're filtering it through what is the court of public opinion in my head going to say about what I've done? That's the courtroom right there. It's not new, though, okay? So we go all the way back to ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, honor and shame were like currencies you traded in to establish yourself in your city. So they didn't have, obviously, cell phones or social media, the Nextdoor, Facebook Marketplace, all the different places where we take in opinions, but they had something equally ruthless. It was called the forum. So it had no algorithm. It was just like unfiltered human interaction, and everything was public in the forum. So if you wanted to shame somebody, they would go to the forum, and you'd go there, and you'd yell out all the things they've done that are full of shame. That's wild, right? But you would go to the court of public opinion because that's also where you got your praise. And you would hope that you would be lifted up and affirmed, really by random strangers, not people you knew, just people who were so the leaders of Rome would show up there a lot, and the emperors were obsessed with it. It was called dignitas. And if they could have dignitas in particular, if the elites would come and say, the emperor's the best, and they would go, oh, I finally am winning the race. Dignitas is how we're perceived in the eyes of others. You didn't just want to be good. You wanted public opinion to make you good. That was the tension with dignitas, right? Now you fast forward to 2025. We don't have the forum anymore, but we still perform, we still compare, we still anxiously check for applause from that random jury. Psychologists in marketing have a term for this: surveillance capitalism. That's kind of it's a gnarly word. You hear it, you're like, that doesn't sound good. Surveillance capitalism, we're being trained to constantly look at ourselves through the eyes of others. This isn't only about selling products. That's how it's utilized. It's just like part of being human. It's like we're not only being watched by others, we're watching ourselves being watched by those who are watching us. Sounds very cyclical and wild, doesn't it? We see this in our own like therapy and sociology. We live in a world right now that is marked in a database. It's marked by pressure to curate our lives, to appear successful, to be attractive, to stay ahead of the curve. One therapist talking about this dilemma summarized it this way. They said, we constantly compare everything from our careers to our bodies to our children to strangers and a loose affiliation on the internet. And think a lot about that. So it's who we're comparing to as part of the challenge here. Okay, so translation though, here's what I would love to do as we jump into this. Who's in your court right now? That's kind of what we're thinking about. Who are you trying to profess or impress? I don't know who you're trying to profess, outperform or get approval from. Maybe it's your manager, like it could just be someone you're under, or maybe it's an employee, someone you're leading. It could be siblings, your parents. That doesn't end. No matter how old you get, you still have these parent things you're working through. Your neighborhood, it could be a coach, a recruiter. Maybe it's someone you haven't thought about in years. Like maybe years for you, some of you are younger. Years for you might be like 5, or maybe like 50 or 70, like you haven't thought about in years, but you're still trying to win the silent case that you were never asked to be in. And the question isn't if you're performing, it becomes, am I living up to this court of public opinion? Now, Paul, the Apostle Paul, who wrote a lot of the New Testament letters, and we'll look at some of his writings today, he kind of hit this in one of his letters right from the outset. It was in Galatians, a letter he wrote to the church in Galatia, just about how to follow Jesus. And he hits it hard. So I want you to hear what he says, but then we're going to go to the cross and kind of explore that. Paul comes right out of the gate in Galatians 1:10, and he says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings? So apparently this was still a thing 2,000 years ago. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. And I feel like, oh, thanks for the good news. It goes right for the jugular as he's talking about this court of public opinion. He says, if I'm still trying to please people, I'm not trying to please God. There doesn't seem to be an option to just kind of do both half-heartedly. We're always on trial. We're always on trial, and the thing is, it's only through the way of the cross that we're not. So please people, be on trial, or please God, receive from him his goodness, his mercy, and his grace, and realize you're not on trial. That's kind of what Paul sets up here as he is talking to this church. And so we're going to take a look at one little text he writes. And we don't, I was thinking about this. I wrote down, we don't even need real people on this made-up jury we have in our head. Now it's gotten so far, it's just like ambiguously imaginary people have say over our lives. They can just speak into our lives. And, we obviously carry that in our pocket, but the brutal truth is that the court of public opinion never hands out verdicts. That's the problem with it. You're just always on trial. Like you're on trial when you're 10, and when you're 20, and when you're 30. And think about that in a legal sense. You're like, wait, my whole life I'm just defending myself? And there's no clear verdict about what's going to unfold here. And so this produces, a real aggressive way to say it. It produces a fear of being mediocre. We don't use that term a lot. Certainly produces that within us, though, of not being enough. And so we stay stuck. So since this is a human problem, and I hope if you're out there, you're like, yeah, I somewhat relate. Or maybe I really relate. Or someone I love relates, right? Let's look at what Paul has to say. Now, keep in mind that he knows better than most what this court of public opinion's like because he's a world-class performer. At some point, he starts to list his qualifications, and he lists them not as something to brag about, but he goes, they're not worth anything. He's like, I trained under the best Greeks, the best Hebrews. I'm a great thinker. I'm a great philosopher. I'm well-educated and well-traveled. I've got Roman citizenship. He's listing out everything he's got. He's like, look, I'm a world-class performer, and I'm a religious all-star. And I'm valedictorian of self-righteousness. Like, he's guy's got a good thing going. And then he meets Jesus. And Jesus is like, nope. He flips everything. So Paul writes this little sentence we're going to read. He writes it to a group of people in an educated, competitive city called Corinth. And here's the beautiful thing about Corinth. Corinth is this city of great opportunity, good neighborhoods, and it's not a big urban coastal city or it's not like Rome or something like that, and so you move to Corinth because you don't want to live in Rome because you want to be around smart people, you want to be around people who are successful, but you also want a good quality of life, and you want a good lifestyle. In some ways, it's like could be a modern-day Boise that he writes to. This could fit us. I gave you a ton of compliments there, by the way, okay? So Paul knows all about this race. He knows about this court of public opinion because his whole life he's lived up to it. And then he's going to say, but I want you to consider the way of the cross. That the cross invites us to live for the approval of only one. Not the crowd, not some random ongoing, non-verdict court of public opinion, but just the one who already knows you and still calls you worthy. He doesn't put you on trial. That's what Paul's going to say about who God is. The way he says it's really, I think, powerful because he says, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to those of us who are being saved, it's the power of God. And he kind of invites all of humanity into this moment right here. Let's talk a little bit about 1 Corinthians 1:18. Foolishness to those who are perishing. It seems like maybe Paul's like starting with like throwing shade at a group of people and kind of fronting his own righteousness. He's like, look at all those fools. We're great. But you have to look at Paul and pull back and realize, like, number one, what's he saying? What's perishing mean? Well, perishing is interesting. It doesn't mean bad people. No, the message of the cross is foolishness to the bad people. It means the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are fading away. Those who are tired and running and running and running and just grabbing hold of life like it's smoke and trying to keep it in between their fingers. Perishing. Springtime, a lot of you are going to be working in your garden, potting up seeds and moving things along, and that seed looks good in the morning. It's got enough water. It's got enough sunlight. You leave it out for the day because it's a warm day. You get busy. You go back. This is what I'm going to say next is heartbreaking for some of you, and it's all wilted over. It's perishing. It's just lost its substance. It can't sustain itself anymore. Anyone that clings to things that don't last. That's what Paul's saying. Status, a resume, an image, a life that's built up to be like something. To the people who are fading, Paul says the cross is foolishness. That's all he's saying. That resonates with me from the days before I was a Christian. You look at the teaching of Jesus and I go, I don't want any of that. I want success and I want accomplishment. I want to travel and see the world. I want a life that's better than the life I grew up in. Paul goes, but here's the thing. It really does sound upside down. He goes as far as to say, in foolishness, and cover your kids' ears, please, but the way of the cross doesn't look strategic, it looks stupid. That's what he starts with. If you've never, there's a lot of followers of Jesus in this room. You're probably like, no, the cross is amazing. The cross is the image of the grace of God, and it reminds me of the power of God. And I go, pull back for a second, though. Paul is writing to followers of Jesus. And he's saying at some point in life, you have to understand that the way of Jesus is foolishness. It looks stupid. And if you don't feel that way, you might be chasing another way and calling it the way of Jesus. You might just be wrapping up the perishing way. Grabbing hold of it really tight, trying to hold that smoke in between your fingers. So following Jesus can be foolish. And yet, it's what saves the world. It's what saves you and me and invites us into life. Because being saved, the follow-up, it's a beautiful word. It means coming alive. It's ongoing and present. So verb tenses. I'm horrible with grammar, but I know a little bit about Bible tenses. Verb tenses, if something's present and ongoing, that means it's happening now and it will continue to happen. So if you think about being saved real quick in terms of that, this is not like I prayed at camp in 5th grade and I was saved. Or it's not like I go to church and I do Christian practices, so I'm saved. It is I gave up and let go of the perishing things of the world that don't last, and I leaned into the foolishness of the way of Jesus. And through him alone am I saved and coming alive. I'll show you some of the other ways Paul talks about this. 2 Corinthians 4:16. Though outwardly we're wasting away, yet inwardly, we're being renewed day by day. Now, that's a great strategy for aging right there. Think about that. There's an outward wasting away that happens in our lives. My Achilles right now tells me that. There's just things don't always work the same way. Memory's a little harder to grab hold of. I'm not as rested as I used to be. I just think about it. It's just like a diagnosis, right? He says, outwardly, we're wasting away, but inwardly, we never stop coming alive in Christ till the day we're reunited with him. In Romans 5:10, out of the Message, the paraphrase, it says this: if when we were at our worst, we were put on family terms with God by the sacrificial death of his son, now that we're at our best because we're on family terms with God, just think of how our lives will expand and deepen by means of his resurrection. To Titus, there's a few letters in the Bible that are called pastoral epistles, and they're written to individuals that Paul is mentoring. So it's kind of like a mentor-mentee kind of engagement. Titus is one of those, and listen to his words of Titus. He says, the grace of God has appeared, and here's what it's done for us. It's training us to renounce ungodliness. It's teaching us how to live in a non-perishing way, to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives. And so being saved, we look at this, that the way of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but it's salvation. It's being saved to those who lean into it. It's an ongoing process of being reformed, transformed by the grace of Jesus Christ. It is not only escaping death. It is also that. But I'm not dead yet. So I want to live. I want to figure out how to live like right now as a dad and a husband and a friend and a son and a neighbor. Like it is escaping. It's being with God for all of eternity. That message is critical to my life, but then my life happens today. So what it does is it invites me into freedom, and this is what Paul's going to talk about here, that we are rooted in the love of God and shaped by the way of the cross. So being saved is more than becoming more religious. It's about becoming more fully human in Christ. And I talk with, our mission is to inspire each other to follow Jesus and deepen our faith and relationship with him. And I talk to a handful of you. You'll turn in like a card and ask for prayer, or we'll get talking, and you'll say like, I'm doing all the things. And it's good, you should do the things. I'm reading the Bible, I'm going to church, I'm serving, I'm praying, but it's not working. I think about that. One, like I resonate with that. Because you can do all the things like Paul did and become very religious. But what we're invited to is to become fully human in Christ. And the practices we've been studying as a church, a Sabbath, prayer, we'll go into more of those throughout our summer and fall. Those are critical to how we remain in Jesus. But you can do all of them and just be frustrated if you're still looking at the cross as stupidity and the ways of the world does things as the way to do things. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I think this invitation is for people who want to learn how to let go of the game, how to lose right, how to live a life that is shaped by the cross, and to acknowledge, and the cross looks weak, and it looks weak to me in my day-to-day, but it is power. In my life group last week, and some of my life group members are here, I'm not going to out you in any way, but we were that'd be a horrible thing for me to do. But we're meeting in my living room. We're just talking, and these are my friends, and we've been meeting together for 4 years, and we're discussing this, and there was this earnestness in each of us saying, I want the power of the cross in my life. That's what I want. And sometimes when I have it, I feel so alive, or I need it in this situation. And other times, it's just like me trying to figure it out. And it was a really earnest conversation. I so appreciated that moment, because it felt like we were kind of wrestling with, like, look, okay, so the power of the cross doesn't show up when you conquer. It shows up when you surrender. So the message of the cross should sound a little foolish, because the sales pitch is, if you want to win the race, you win by stopping running it altogether. And if you want to stop running the race, you don't do that by winning the race. You do it by surrendering to God. Instead of clinging, which is going to be perishing, clinging. Surrender, and there's going to be power there. So the question isn't just, do I believe in the cross? Do I believe the message of Easter, the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, the forgiveness of sins, that I can be made right with God? It's not only do I believe that, the question is also, the other half of the belief question is, am I living in it? Is it shaping my reactions, my relationships, my rhythms? Because what I hope for us is that we'll find that the cross is really where the power for life is. Not just the forgiveness power, but the formation power. And we begin to live daily in a changed life. And if you're listening, some of you, you're probably like, I keep hearing the same thing. This is redundant on purpose. Because this is what it's all about. It's that we could we could through surrender. Well, this is what Paul says. He goes, when you put your life into the way of the cross, something happens. He says this to the church in Galatia. He says, this is what happens. Your life begins to manifest or produce something. The fruit of the Spirit. This is the power. Love, joy, peace, patience, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And he's not giving a motivational speech here. It's not a great motivational speech to his early audience or even today. If I'm like, hey, now I've got you all here. Monday's coming. All right, you got goals and deadlines and dysfunctional teams and functional teams and competitions and finals and SAT this week for the juniors and all sorts of fun things, right? And going, here's what I want you to do. Love, joy, peace. Partway through, you're like, that's not applicable at all to what's in front of me. And Paul's like, no, it's the thing. It's the fruit. You're going to produce fruit when you go out and take your SAT. You're going to produce fruit. You're going to produce fruit when you go to work and when you parent and when you enter into a relationship or you sit in your singleness. You're going to produce fruit. But the fruit of the Spirit that comes by the way of the cross is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And we find it's not the fruit of effort. It's the fruit of surrender. And I don't know a better way to say this than to talk about fruit trees. I want to see if I like you more than the first service. How many of you have fruit trees? Oh, okay, much better service than the last one. Okay, that service needs to act like they live here and plant some fruit trees. So here's what I find. I have 2 peach trees, okay? One's dead. I have to deal with that this year. One's alive. They're both very young. I moved here 5 years ago. And I have found, if you think about this idea about effort and surrender, I have found that there is no way I can effort my fruit trees into producing a different kind of fruit or more fruit. I can't, like my dead peach tree, I could go out there and be like, you know what? I bought you. I planted you. I watered you and I fertilized you. And you're not growing any fruit for me. Now do what you're supposed to do. Go get them. That tree's going to stay dead. You might be like, because my tone was bad. So I'm like, hey, fruit tree, we share a backyard. I love you and you love me, but I'm not seeing evidence of your love for me, right? That tree's still not going to produce. It's really interesting to think of kind of the agricultural nature of spiritual growth. You can't muscle spiritual fruit into your life. You can't do it. Jesus kind of explains that to us. He says, look, it's not a to-do list. It's a results list. This is not a go do more love. Go do more joy. You know someone in your life who lacks joy? Just tell them to be more joyful. Right? Highly successful, right? No, you go, or how about this? You're in conflict maybe with a spouse or a roommate or a good friend or a sibling, and they're not being patient. Just tell them, hey, be more patient. It just doesn't work. Something has to happen that produces the result of this fruit, and it starts to emerge when you stop performing and you start abiding. So joy is what bubbles up. It's what bubbles up. It produces out of you when success isn't guaranteed and joy is hard to come by, and yet there it is. The fruit's there. Peace is what you carry with you even when everything around you is on fire. And everything, if you're a human, everything around you will always be on fire. Love is how you respond to someone who's wounded you. It was Jesus who said, look, anyone can love their friend. Try to love someone that's hurt you. That's life. Patience is how you walk in someone else's pace, not your own. This is so hard in community, and it's so hard in relationships to go, I need to walk in your pace, even though it's hard for me. God can produce this fruit in you. Self-control is when you want to lash out, but you don't because someone else is producing the fruit in your life. Left to your own fruit. I was thinking about this in my own life. I started my career as a school teacher. Everything was going great. I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm newly married. I got this little kid named Gabe. He's 25 years old now, so I'm a dad. I got a baby. I've got this great marriage. I've got this great meaningful job. I have a 40-minute commute to work in my 85 Tercel hatchback, which was a great car. You could start it with one leg out the door. When it died on a wet day at McDonald's, you just put your leg out, give it a push, bang, you were up and running, right? Life was good, and I would drive into work, and I would love God. I'd listen to worship, praise music. I'd get in there. I'd teach with all my heart, right? I'm coming into work one day. I am a follower of Jesus, and my life is full of good fruit. And there's this 5-way stop 5-way, 4-way, 3-way, 2-way stops, all really tricky to me. I don't even know if there's such thing as a 2-way stop. But here's what happens. You get there and I get there at the same time. And then, oh no, I actually get there a little earlier than you. But I'm nice. So I go, and I start waving people through. You all know how confusing that makes everything. I'm supposed to go. It's just go, man. It all works a certain way. I'm waving people through. They're telling me to go. I'm a nice guy. I'm waving them through. There's 5 cars all waiting. Finally, I'm like, oh, I messed this up. My wife's always telling me that. She still does today. And so I pull out. I go through. At the same time, this other guy comes in. We almost hit each other, right? And I'm like, sorry. And he gives me like the double number ones right back at me. He's super intense. Okay, like amplified. I'm like, that's cool, a total mistake, and now I'm going to the gas station. Because at this time, you could bid on gas through Priceline. And I got 80 cents a gallon. Well, they don't do it anymore. They did it very briefly. I'm going to a gas station to get my 80 cents a gallon gas that I just bid on in Priceline. So I have to hit this gas station real quick. This guy comes flying up right next to me, honking his horn, gets out of the car, starts just unloading on me. My life's amazing. I'm happily married. Got this little baby boy. I've got a job I love. I love Jesus. And it takes that long for me to go, who do you think you are? And I'm pumping gas, and my Tercel's like this tall. So I just pound the top of their Tercel, and I'm like, you want to go? Let's go. And I start walking towards the guy. I'm about to teach class in a few minutes. I also lead Bible study at my church. God. I think he thought I was serious and realized that was an intense situation. He got in his car and drove away. I was like, what just happened to me? I get in my car, I go to school, I'm off all day. Can't shake this from my head. I'm in the car driving home, that 40-minute drive, right? And I start thinking about this. I go, why? It's not just that moment. I'm always on the edge of impatience, of being short-tempered. I always feel like I'm in a hurry, but why? And I sit there and I go, it just hits me before I walk in the door. I realize that I don't think I'm becoming more like Jesus. I think I'm just getting really, really, really good at pretending I am until something happens. And I felt just like, what? And all of a sudden, in his kindness, that Galatians text dropped into my head. I think you should all memorize it. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And God just said, I have this for you, but you're going about it the wrong way. See, I was trying harder. I was a new Christian. I've been a Christian for 5 or 6 years, and I was hustling. He says, I don't need you to try harder. I need you to get closer to Jesus. I need you to be with me. Jesus, later on it hit me, these echo his same words. He said in John 15:5, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. And this sentence is so intense because he joins 2 sentences, and wouldn't one have been enough? He starts with, I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you'll bear much fruit. That's awesome. The way of the cross will bring fruit to my life. But then he hits the perishing side. He goes, apart from me, it's just going to look like foolishness. You're going to strive and you're going to hustle, and you're going to race and you're going to race and you're going to race. So diagnostic question that has been helpful for me is not like, how's your time reading the Bible, or did you sin less this week? Those are, I think, both pretty good questions. But it's this, what's actually growing in your life right now? Let me throw that up there. What's actually growing in your life right now? Not as a compensation for your good spiritual work, but as a cultivation for remaining in Jesus. What's actually growing in your life right now? Are people more patient? Are you more patient with people than you were? Do people feel more loved after they're with you? Do you bring peace into the room, whatever room it is, or do you just bring a low-key anxiety that you don't want to talk about, they don't want to talk about, but it's there? And Jesus died that we might live, like now. Because here's the good news, too. The fruit of the Spirit is not about personality. Because I used to think like, well, they're passive or they're peaceful, or they're gentle. It is not about our personalities. You can be a force-driven, type A, You can be somebody who makes things happen, or someone who's a team builder and a glue person who works behind the scenes, or a peacemaker. You can have so many natural different ways you come to the table, but the fruit of the Spirit is about God's character coming through your surrender. It's all of our fruit. It's not like, oh, that guy's he's loving. I'm just not. It's fruit. So instead of running the race, which always has this subtle question, did I win this week? We need to ask ourselves, what needs to die in me so I can clear a little ground, so I can cultivate a better fruit, so that I can create the space where the Lord can grow something up in my life. And I think this is where the power of resurrection is lived in our day-to-day, because the way of the cross invites us to. And you read the scriptures, you'll have a very hard time escaping this in the teaching of Jesus. And apply this not to some global thing. Apply it to the people you're sitting with, the people you work with, the people you're in class with. The way of the cross invites us to take the lower road, to let go of the win, to lay it down, to surrender the spotlight, to choose love. So when you're in the tension, and your pride rises up or your ego flares, and maybe you know Jesus, maybe you don't, but we're all invited into this. Your pride will still rise up, your ego will still flare, and then the courtroom in your head starts to pound the gavel and starts to call out all of it does the dignitas work, all your faults and all your humiliation, and your pride goes, no, I'm better than that, and you're stuck in this moment. Ask yourself, what would it look like for me to let go of the win here? And maybe that's the moment you'll start to see this new bud pop out and this new fruit start to grow. Remember, Paul said the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. You know, thinking about how Jesus is always changing hearts and changing communities and changing the world. And I wrote a little list down. I believe this with so much conviction. And I've experienced it, and it's the story of the history of followers of Jesus. The world experiences transformation, hope, and change, not by louder Christians with more to say and saying it louder, not by more impressive churches. Eastwind's looking at an expansion. We will have, I believe, a church that better suits Southeast Boise and our community and our needs. That is not like, and now we're going to change everything. We just need that. That's our reality about our space and our growth. All right? It's not more impressive churches, and it's not by being right. And the gospel presents itself as a capital T truth that is right. It's not by being right. We're not short on winning Christians. We need to learn how to walk in the way of Jesus, even when it feels stupid. And then we connect with Paul, who had to do it himself, who had to say, it's foolishness to those who are trying to grab hold of it. But it's power. It's power. It remakes you. When you surrender, the cross doesn't crush you. It forms you. So I'd love to give you like an exercise. We'll end with this, and we're going to share communion. So just pause this week when like you hit that moment of tension. Do this for yourself. Just pause, breathe, and ask, am I perishing or being saved? Am I clinging or surrendering? Am I chasing the wind or am I choosing the cross? And give you a moment to reflect on that, and then we'll share in communion.
Early in the morning, I still get a little bit nervous, fighting my anxiety constantly and try to control it. Even when I know it's been forever, I can still feel the spin. Hurts when I remember, and I never wanna feel it again. Don't know if you get it, 'cause I can't express how thankful I am that you were always with me when it hurts. I know that you don't understand. I don't wanna lose control. Nothing I can do 'cause I still think it's coming, but I know it's not. Trying to breathe in and then out, but the air gets